Yes. I just have to go in. I had to get into my work computer to do the forward, and then I had to go off this to do that.
Okay. So with that, could you do the roll call, please?
Yes. Bonnie Franson,
Present?
John Allegro,
Here.
Lisa McQuaid,
Here.
Pat Shea,
Here.
Jeff Manson,
Here.
Jason Swinsky.
Here.
Thank you. And Anthony is absent.
And Anthony is absent, so we have a quorum and we can conduct business. With that, we will do the Pledge of Allegiance. George suggested that everybody mute and that I say the pledge because apparently there's a lot of feedback in the recordings. So if you would all mute yourself and we will say the pledge. So I pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. I knew that was going to happen. We knew you couldn't control yourself there, John.
I don't know. Ward might be on the call, so.
It wouldn't be you. All right, first item on the agenda. We have a public hearing for Raywood Drive. Ashley, should we open that formally?
Yes, you could do a motion to open the public hearing.
So I will make a motion that we open the public hearing for 81 Raywood Drive. May I have a second?
I'll second that.
Noreen, could you take roll call on the votes?
Yes. Who was the second? I couldn't hear.
I think it was me.
Thank you. Okay. So Bonnie Franson,
Aye.
John Allegro,
Aye.
Lisa McQuaid,
Aye.
Pat Shea,
Aye.
Jeff Manson,
Aye.
Jason Swinsky.
Aye.
All in favor, and Anthony is absent.
Okay, so with that, we are opening the public hearing. I believe we have to introduce whoever's participating in the attendees. I see Joel, and I'm not sure who else.
Right now.
All right. So Joel,
There's a Rachel Baris raising her hand.
Yes, Rachel is from Larry Torres' office.
okay, let's include Rachel. Joel, can you hear us?
Yes. Hi.
Is there very well. How are you?
Okay, doing well.
Terrific. Is anyone other than yourself and Rachel are participating in the public hearing?
I don't think so. I think it's the two of us. It's Joel and Rachel.
So with that, Sean, maybe before we get into the public hearing, you could please bring up the plan, and then Joel could do an overview, or Rachel could do an overview.
Okay.
Very good. So Joel, why don't you go ahead?
Okay. So basically, at the last meeting, we have the board has scheduled a public hearing for this project, and we had a couple. It was basically subject to addressing the comments from the planning board, and we did that. We resubmitted a set of plans, and So basically, it was very more like technical comments, simple comments. We just received a couple days ago. We received a new comment letter from Sean. I didn't have a chance to review that, and it's basically also regarding the easements that we are working to get it. And Orange County Sewer District number 1 application has been submitted, and as soon as we will get something, I actually had a meeting last week with the sewer department. They are working now on it, so we hope to get back from them something or comments or approval soon. And that's basically it.
So why don't we just take one quick step back, Joel, and explain again what this subdivision is, how many units, where it's located, for the
Okay.
benefit of anybody who may be listening in for the public hearing.
Okay, sure. So this property is located on the end of the cul-de-sac of Rago Drive. We're proposing a 3-lot subdivision. All the 3 lots are compliant with the bulk table, and the proposal is to build a single-family home on each lot. We did, in the last couple of months, went through with the planning board. We did more or less a completed set of plans, included grading, utilities, and there was a lot of discussions about the trees. There's actually a letter from the Conservation Committee probably will need to address that. And so we're here basically for the public hearing to address any concerns from the public.
Very good. Rachel, would you like to add anything to that?
Nothing at this time.
Okay. So with that, we'll open it to the public. If anyone is an attendee and wants to speak or ask questions with regard to this particular project, could you please raise your hand or send a chat message? Or we may have chat disabled, right, Sean? So then just raise your hand, please.
We do have 2 call-in users. I'm not sure if they're able to raise their hands.
Yeah. Perhaps let's unmute them real quick and see if someone wants to speak.
Okay. Hi, call user ending in 1992. Would you like to speak for the public hearing?
No. Thank you.
Okay, and then caller 845-783-9031. Did you want to make any comments on this public hearing?
Ward Brower, Conservation Commission. Yes, I have a comment when your time comes.
Hi, Ward.
How you doing?
Good. Did you want to say anything with regard to as part of the public hearing?
Yes.
Okay.
Now?
Sure.
Okay. You did get our comments from the Conservation Commission on the walk, the tree walk?
Yes.
Okay. If I didn't do that, I would be crucified by the rest of my commission.
Okay.
My first question is, I noticed that there are 3 lots and household square footage at 2,500 and 1,2600. But in the notes on the plans, I see there's not to exceed a maximum of 6 bedrooms. But what I don't see is the number of people per dwelling rather than bedrooms or whatever. I was curious what that is. What's the proposed maximum number of people per household? That's my question.
Joel, do you want to respond?
I don't think this is something that we can limit or we can predict. There is standards according with the bedroom counts and how much people are in bedrooms. That's according to New York State and the federal guidelines. And I think this is something that we should or we should limit or we can something that we can predict.
Okay, thank you.
Not sure I'm getting an answer here.
Well, I think essentially Joel is saying, I'm getting some feedback. Is there someone who's unmuted? I don't know where it's coming from. Joel, are you the only one that's unmuted?
I can mute myself.
Let's see if that works.
It might be Ward's phone.
I can't hear Joel. He's got a lot of background.
Okay. So Joel, do you want to repeat that?
Ward, can you hear me now?
Yes, I can, Joel.
Okay, so basically where I never had this question actually, and there is, what I know is that there is standard guidelines in the New York State Building Code or in the federal guidelines about how much people can sleep in each bedroom. there's no prediction for this unit, and I don't think there's any reasonable reason to limit the number of people sleeping in each bedroom or occupying this residential unit. And never heard such a type of restriction. Unless the board think otherwise, then they should raise their concerns, and we'll see what we can commit ourselves.
Now, my comment is, I don't want to limit the number of people per bedroom. That's not it. What I want to know is, for purpose of seeker, how do we determine an actual number of people that are going to be in each unit? Otherwise, you can't do seeker. I don't want to limit it. I just want to know what it is. Otherwise, you can't do it. You don't know what the water projections are. You don't know the sewer projections. You don't know about the impact on traffic. You can't calculate it.
Can I answer that? My name is Rachel Baris. I'm a professional engineer. Larry Toro is my partner. We design it for 2 people per bedroom. So for the sewer calculations and water usage, it's based on 2 people per bedroom.
Okay, then you're doing a bedroom count. So you're telling me that the multiplier is 2 per bedroom.
Yes.
Okay. Now my question is, then how many bedrooms? This is the roundabout way of doing it. It's very convoluted. I prefer to do what New York State does. That is, they have an actual occupancy number. But we want to go this convoluted route. Okay. So now I need to know how many bedrooms each dwelling has. Somehow we got to get to the number.
There are proposed 6 bedrooms in each house, as you just mentioned earlier. So you make your count, it's basically this, based on that count, it can occupy 12 people in each house.
But the plans didn't indicate that. It's not to exceed a maximum number of 6. Didn't say what you actually put down.
So do you want us to commit to 6 bedrooms? I'm not sure. I'll do the house plans. It'll be a decision.
I'm not trying to get you, Joel. I'm just trying to figure a number that actually works so you can use something scientific and do these calculations.
So the sewer and the water are basically calculated to the worst case scenario. If there will be less bedrooms, then there will be a benefit. So.
Okay, so what did we come with then each house has how many bedrooms?
6.
6? Okay. Thank you, Joel.
Okay.
Thank you, Bonnie.
Bonnie, you're muted.
Bonnie, you're muted.
Sorry about that. So what I was saying is that in 57-21.8C, there is a section that says that a house relocation and standard notes are to be placed on every site plan or subdivision approved by the planning board. And it includes notes that specifically state the maximum number of bedrooms is not exceeded, the maximum building footprint is not exceeded. So their word in terms of how many bedrooms, it's specified in the house relocation notes. Your comment went beyond that to talk about and make the request and question how many people would be within the dwelling. But at a minimum, the applicant is required to disclose how many bedrooms on which to some extent the population is based. And that is on the plan. So I don't know that there's any other individuals who want to make comments. Those were our 2 phone call-in listeners. Board members, do you have any questions with regard to the plan and what is shown? Any comments?
Bonnie?
Would this be a time to comment about the Conservation Committee report?
Ashley, do you want to do that as part of the public hearing or outside of the public hearing?
Whichever you prefer. If you
Okay.
want to do it during the public hearing in the event you want additional information or, want some further input, then you could do it that way.
Okay. So John, did you have comments on that report?
Yeah, I understand the statement about white pine trees, which were proposed as replacement trees or screen trees. I understand that they are high maintenance and they can be rather fragile in wind and snow conditions. The only question I had was the recommendation to replace those screen trees with arborvitaes. They can end up getting destroyed by deer in no time. So, maybe if, Ward's on, maybe if there's another alternative that might be an evergreen tree, that would, doesn't necessarily have to grow so quickly, but wouldn't be deer food.
Yeah, something that's deer resistant.
Yeah.
Ward, are you still on, or is he still on?
I'm back. I think I'm back on.
Yep.
Yes.
Okay. As far as the trees, the deer are a problem. I agree with John. They're a problem with white pine. They're a problem with practically every tree in existence. Problem is, you take advantage of the topo on this. This is on a slope, so deer can only reach up about 6 feet and eat. They can jump 10 or 12 feet, but they can't eat jumping. So on a slope like that, even if you do lose 5 feet of coverage, you won't see it. Your tree will grow up. It's less maintenance. The white pines, what happens is, they grow 6 feet a year. If you don't prune them once a year, in about 10 years, the bottom branches will thin out, and people will cut them off anyway because they protrude out about 30 or 40 feet from the base. So that's not going to work. There's no beautiful deer-proof tree that works in this scenario. This is the one that is most effective. I've seen areas of towns where they've been devastated, defoliated arborvitaes. I've seen other areas where they haven't been touched. But by and large, that's the one that seems to work in our location, from my experience. Any other questions, John?
So yeah, screening trees or trees around a property can provide much needed shade during the summer. But if they're, trees that lose their leaves over the winter, you may lose a screening effect, but you may get valuable sunshine onto the homes to help keep the homes warm. Is that something that you guys took a look at? I don't know the actual north-south position of the buildings.
Okay, why we recommend the arborvitae is that they're like a second-story tree. At maximum, they won't get above 35 feet. White pines can get to 110 feet. Colorado blue spruces can get up to about 70, 80 feet. But they're, as I said, they're a maintenance problem. And then you got the width. These are relatively narrow. These lots are tight. You can't put huge, humongous trees in there. You're sort of limited to what you can do with this. This is a perplexing problem, trying to get trees where there's no room really for trees to be in the first place. It's the tree that we've worked out over the last 15 years working with the planning board, previous planning boards, but this is the one that works the best from our experience. We've tried a multitude of others and haven't worked out. If you can find a better one, by all means, bring it to us and we'll be happy to take it.
Thank you. I was just asking someone who obviously knows more about it than I do. I appreciate your answers.
And the other thing was why we caution on the blue spruce. Normally, my grandfather raised blue spruce, my father did, I did. They were bulletproof up until about 18, 20 years ago. Then global warming hit, and we would get these micro and mini droughts would hit during the growing season. And the results were that unless they had a constant source of moisture, many of the Colorado blue spruces experienced all kinds of dieback from various forms of diseases and insects, which have been around for hundreds of years, but were not problematic because the trees were very healthy. When they get stressed, a common cold will kill you, and these trees were stressed. You can ride around the town and look at the number of blue spruces and how they've been devastated. Other areas are beautiful. Why are they beautiful? One or two reasons. They've either been irrigated artificially, or they're in an area where they get a lot of infiltration of water and dry periods. Now, this may be a case over there because you're coming down off a slope, and it's a rocky slope, and there may be a lot of groundwater in there. I don't know. But we in the past, we've said there's just high maintenance. People aren't going to maintain them. That's one thing I do know over the years. People don't maintain trees. They don't hire arborists. They don't do that. So trees have to more or less be self-maintaining in order to survive and do well. That was our recommendation.
Ward, are there any cedars, eastern cedar, are there any cedars that might be deer resistant?
None of them. Bonnie, I went to a seminar. It was down in Westchester this was 16 years ago, and it's gotten only worse. And there must have been 100 participants, and these were nursery people from all over New York State, Long Island, all the way up to the Adirondacks. And they had the topic was deer-resistant trees. And the speaker had 100 of them. At the end of the seminar, the speaker was down to 0 trees that were deer-resistant. He'd recommend, I said, just white pine. Boom. 20 hands would go up. And another species. I do the Japanese spruce. Boom. 10 hands go up. So, no, there aren't. If it's a live tree and the deer are hungry, they're going to eat anything.
Okay. And it is interesting that you can be in some forests and you don't see a lot of deer foliage eaten because there is enough other food mass.
Correct. A lot of these trees, Bonnie, you hit the nail on the head, is that a lot of these trees are not their first preference for the deer. Right. But when there's nothing else around, they'll eat them.
Right.
The main thing is you can get up, as I said, you take advantage of the topo on this site. The site drops off dramatically. So the deer part that they do eat, you won't even be able to notice it. Because the trees will get up there and they'll perform their screening capabilities and you'll be fine.
So we'll take a look at your comments. I think we had also talked about possibly putting some trees at the end of Raywood Drive.
Yes, I saw that in the note.
Right, so that where the turnaround is, right, that they put something there. So we'll consider your plantings.
Okay, thank you.
These are the white plains. White pines.
Yeah, I'd stay away from them. They get too big. We had a project. We had a walk about 6 months ago. What happened was a new homeowner came in, and he bought this house, and he had 10 or 12 white pines, which were planted 30, 40 years ago. They had taken over the entire backyard. He couldn't do anything, so he went in and had them removed, and then he got called in on the tree ordinance. So we had to go in and make recommendations. And again, these trees, if you don't maintain them once a year, and the white pines, forget it.
Right. Okay, so thank you, Ward.
Bonnie, I want to stress one other thing. In our report, we went on the galvanized wire for staking those trees. I'd love to have $1 for every one of these trees I've seen that happen. They will stake these trees, the planters will stake them, and then put the wire around, and then they'll forget to remove the wire. They're supposed to remove the wire within a year. Because the trees have not established themselves within 1 year's time, and you better revisit the planting and do it again. But they don't. And then the trees expand, the bark grows over the wire, and then 20 years down the road, 10 years down the road, you'll get a windstorm and the tree will snap off. That's why you use biodegradable rope, because nature will take care of it within a year, and it's problem solved.
Okay. And that's in your comments because I recall seeing that.
Yes.
Okay.
And
Actually,
that-
question for Ashley. Can there be, as part of the inspection fees, the subdivision fees a year from now that they have to go out and look at the plants?
So I'd have to look at your code. I know I'm pretty sure that the tree law does speak about fees. I don't know if they specifically have inspection fees, but you of course have the inspection fees with your subdivisions in general. So we could look at whether you could include, so you're saying like a bond that would cover that?
Right. Yeah, especially tree plantings and then maintenance of those plantings, as Ward's saying, that someone can go out, inspect, and ensure that the conditions and the site details are in fact followed.
Yeah, I think that you'd be able to structure something like that as a condition.
Okay. So board members, do you all agree the applicant should obviously look at the Conservation Commission's comments and take them into consideration in developing the landscaping plan?
Yes.
Yes, I agree.
Yes.
All right, thank you. Does anybody else from the board have comments?
I have a couple.
Okay.
In relation to conservation committee's recommendation on tree screening, those same type of trees were used on a project in the village of Harriman, where the memorial is at the where Church Street and South Main come together, right in the middle of the village there, where the memorial park is. There was no good screening behind that. There were some trees that was all taken out. The recommendation that we're hearing here tonight was actually what the nursery recommended in that case. And it was about 3 years ago it was done. I drove by and looked at it yesterday, and it's just come in terrific. It's doing exactly the job that they were looking for in this situation, and I think it would do well as Ward and the Conservation Committee has recommended. I had a chance to go out finally and take a look at the property. I noted the same thing with the large rocks, particularly at the top of the property up by Raywood Drive. One of the things that I wanted to recommend, it looks like where the driveway comes in on lot number 3, there's quite a few large boulders. And yes, I would recommend, if you take a look, if the applicant takes a look at 47 Raywood, just up the street, they use a number of the boulders that were on the property to do some interesting things, and it looks really good. One of the other thoughts I had was where those boulders were, where the driveway is, there's a big, almost cubicle shaped flat top boulder. Looks smack right where the driveway is going to be, and it looks like it would be nice if you could arrange that. They're the 3 large trees that are on the tree plan, just to the southwest of the driveway, and well, actually just due west of the driveway, and it would make a nice little area there. It looks like someone had set up some temporary seating using some stumps in that area, and it would almost be nice to preserve that and make a little seating area in that small grove of trees that the future residents could enjoy. Just taking advantage of some of the things that you have there to really do some nice landscaping on the project. I'm a little concerned about with the significant slope in that part of the property, about with all the trees that need to be removed, how much additional stormwater drainage is going to be generated in the property and is going to go towards that bottom of the hill, kind of eastern corner. From what I observed, it didn't look like there were kind of some houses off to the side of that, but I was wondering if Joel could speak to what's really at that back bottom corner of the hill where water would be draining perhaps more significantly with some tree removal. Right, exactly down there. What's beyond the property to that eastern corner?
Joel or Rachel?
Yes, I'm here. I just need to unmute myself. Bonnie, maybe you should bring up the Google Maps so you can see, or maybe the Orange County GIS. There's a right behind the property, there's a condominium, and I think you can see a little bit of houses, but right at the angle corner on the right side, this is a school property, and I think there is a pound. You can see there's a 24-inch pipe. I think this, if I remember correctly, this is leading out to a pound, a detention pound. So
I can bring it up if you can share.
Oh, maybe Sean. Okay.
Yeah.
You have the ability to share.
Do you have the ability to share?
I think you do.
I do.
Yeah, all panelists can share.
Okay, so let me get to where we are. So can we see this? Can you see that?
Okay, it's coming up now.
Yeah, I can see it.
Yeah.
Okay, so you can see the property at the end of the cul-de-sac?
Mm-hmm.
We're right here, correct?
Yes.
And in fact, there's development happening here, I believe, that you can't see.
Happening here, correct. And then the pound is basically, you can go more to the right side, you can see there is, so yes. So basically all the water is draining down in that direction. Oh, it's more updated.
Yeah, I'm gonna see if Google has it more updated in the maps.
It should be more updated.
There you go, so you can see some grading happening here. This building is new. I think some of this is new, and this is our site.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay.
I did want to show you, these are the rocks, I believe, that you were talking about, Jeff, right? Some of the ones in the front.
Yeah.
And they're bigger ones. Those are just some.
Right.
Yeah. So we actually noted that if there was some way, it's a little hard to tell what's natural and what might have been placed there from other activities, because I think there's a little bit of a mix of rock that almost looks like there was some blasting and they threw it there, and other rocks do look as if they're natural. So it's kind of hard, but it would be nice to integrate that into the design.
So the question is, do you want to see it specifically on the site plan, or just a note on the site plan that we should implement that into the design? So that's a question.
Well, I think we need to be clear on the map of what can remain natural. Is the entire site being graded? If the entire site's being graded, then the rocks obviously have to be moved, and then it's a matter of showing us where you might place them, how you might locate them. You know, doesn't have to be a specific, I don't know that it has to be specific design, but maybe showing with notes and areas where you would place some of that natural material. Okay. And again, if there's any trees to be preserved at all, you know, I thought the map was showing some. Sean? You're muted.
Yeah, yeah. There are some. these trees that are labeled TTR, tree to remain, these are ones that are to remain. And there, I believe there is a note, I can't recall where it was, about trying to utilize some of the rocks as landscaping.
Yeah.
Right here.
I think it's on sheet 2, Sean.
Yeah, it's, oh, sorry, I forgot I wasn't sharing anymore.
Yeah, on sheet 2, you can see the note that the large stones and boulders on the site to be utilized to the most practical extent possible in the landscape areas. Yes.
So I guess then if the board, wanted something more specific or to see something visually in a landscape plan of how they'd be used, now would be the time to talk about that.
Yeah, and it may be that they just call it out, perhaps on the landscape plan, where they might be able to retain some of those materials. Blobby areas, just showing generally where that could happen.
Okay, I will show on two, 3 areas that we can think that we can keep it that areas. No problem. I want to go back 1 second to Jeff's question. Jeff had a question about the drainage. So basically, we saw the surroundings, and then the second thing is this property is over an acre, and the engineer provided a SWIP, and we have on-site detention. There is a couple pits on each property, so basically taking in the additional impervious areas.
I have a question, Joel. What kind of pit is it on the property?
What kind of what?
I thought you said it was, it'll have a pit. Like I see, it says roof leader.
Sorry, it's dry wells. Wherever it's dry wells, there is.
Oh, so they're underground.
Underground dry wells.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Thank you.
Anybody else have questions? Sean, do you want to go through some of your comments?
Bonnie,
Yes, Noreen?
I just sent you a text. I don't know whether you want to see if I should ask the question.
No, I'm looking it up myself, but
Okay.
I'll raise it now. In looking, Joel, you make reference to this property being 80 Raywood Drive. But if we look at the property
81.
And the SBL 81 and the SBL, and we look it up online, as far as the property information, there doesn't appear to be a number assigned to it. So.
Right, actually, I just recently noted that, and I'm not sure from where I got this number. I believe I did it because across the street is 80 or something like that, but
yeah, I think it's just, I don't know that we changed the application name at this point, but it doesn't appear to have a number yet assigned to it for 911 purposes.
Do you want me to change the application and the plans, basically all the cover sheets, whatever, all the title blocks? It should just say Raywood Drive without the address, correct?
Ashley, what are your thoughts? Are there any?
Yeah, I think that makes sense because I think it'd be confusing if the 81 is kept on there if it's not actually the address for the property.
Yep. Okay, that shouldn't be a big deal. We'll take care of that.
Very good. Okay, Sean?
A lot of these are, same comments as before, such as the water easements and the sewer laterals, just kind of reminders for any potential conditional approval. One thing, we did provide the SWIP comments. I I didn't see a revised SWIP, but that'll have to be addressed prior to, stamping of the plans. Previously, I had suggested that that a note be added to the plans that whatever trees are going to remain, trees that are remaining, be labeled to be protected for the detail that was provided right here, the tree protection detail, just to be able to tie the detail to the locations on the plans. Previously, the highway superintendent had requested both the chain link fence be removed that's located within the right-of-way. I did see a note to that effect. However, he also requested that a note be added that the street trees that are proposed within the right-of-way to be maintained by the homeowners. I didn't see that note. Number 7, I think it was brought to the attention by one of the board members that the utility lines, the gas and the electric, try to keep those as close to the proposed sidewalks as possible, especially for lots 1 and 3, to try to eliminate the disturbance and trenching to each of the houses. I see they did a good job doing that for lot number 1. I suggested that lot number 3 could maybe be a little bit closer. And we already talked about the comments by the Monroe's Conservation Commission. That's all I
Okay, thank you.
Let me have a question about regarding the comment number 6. There on this plan, on this as the way the subdivision has been proposed, there's no plan to do any homeowner association. So the question is, we should do just a homeowner association just to maintain the trees on this area, or there's any other way to put responsibility on the tree lot owners? All the tree lots are self-maintained. The drainage is, everyone has the self-drainage. They have the sewer, the water lines, everything is separately. The driveways, so there's no common usage on these 3 lots.
Yeah, I'm not sure if, maybe Ashley would know better, if that can simply just be a note on the plan. Does there need to be a homeowners association to maintain those trees?
There doesn't have to be a homeowners association, but it would have to be, and I'll have to think about the best way to really accomplish that, but either through some sort of deed restriction and some kind of agreement that would be filed with the county, maybe that would have these 3, if it wasn't going to be just on one person, which it really depends. It might be easier to, make it, as far as the town's purposes, make just one person responsible, and then however the 3 lots want to work it out amongst them, if they're going to share the responsibility, that's up to them. But just for purposes of the planning board's point of view, I think it would just be a requirement that's something enforceable to make sure those trees are maintained by at least one of the homeowners.
Ashley, could they be tied to the stormwater maintenance agreement somehow?
So there's going to be a stormwater maintenance agreement. Is it going to cover the entire site?
Each lot.
I was going to actually ask about that. We
Yeah,
were
do
going
we
to have,
need a district?
we were going to have dry wells on each lot, so they would be maintained by the homeowner. Would your stormwater maintenance agreement were you thinking of something that was between the homeowners, or just something that allowed the town to come in if there was a problem with maintenance?
Since each of the dry wells are on the respective lots and only treating each individual lot, in my opinion, it's that each lot can maintain their own.
Okay.
I'm not sure if a standard agreement would include the town being able to get on site to maintain it if it wasn't maintained.
Okay, because I just didn't know what kind of agreement you were looking for, since it's not going to be between the lots.
So typically it would, and I just don't know whether, Bonnie, I don't know if you know the answer to this, but whether Monroe has a form agreement or something, but I know typically the municipality will have that right, but not the obligation to go in, and maintain stormwater.
Okay. That's what I've seen other places.
Yeah.
I would check.
I was actually, as we were bringing this up, I was wondering whether because the town does create drainage districts, and in as much as it's a small subdivision, I don't know if they would want to create a district for this or not. And I think
I
say
would
that again.
I was just going to say, I would suggest against it since there's no shared treatment or storage.
Right.
Each of the individual lots are serviced by their own dry wells.
Right.
So, I don't think it would be in the town's benefit to, create a district for each one of those.
So then it would be up to some kind of stormwater maintenance agreement, but we'd have to find out if the town wants to be able to enforce the agreement. If there's an issue and if something has to be cleaned out, if something has to be maintained.
Or have the right to access the property in the event that they're not maintained and, there's an issue with them.
Right. I think we have to ask the board that question. So that's something to follow up with. And maybe, Sean, perhaps you can speak to the highway superintendent?
Sure.
And he may have some insight as to what they've done for some of the smaller subdivisions in the past. Although he's newer too, so it may be ultimately we have to go back to the town board.
Yeah, I'll also ask Mark how it's been done in the past.
Okay. How far have we gotten with Eagle View? What's our setup there on Lakes Road? From a stormwater maintenance perspective.
Off the top of my head, I don't recall.
Okay. I was gonna say that might be one to consider, but okay, we'll follow up. Any other questions? Jeff? Comments?
I'm good.
You're good? Anybody else? Pat or Lisa or Jason or John? You're good?
I'm good.
All good.
Nope,
All right. So,
Sorry, I do remember Eagleview. They have the private road, so they have a private road maintenance agreement. So.
okay, so it's built into the private road.
Right.
Okay. All right, so we'll have to follow up with that. Ashley, given the limited response and attendance at this public hearing, would you recommend that we close the public hearing, or should we hold it over just in the event that there's, we want to allow one more opportunity for the public to comment?
I don't think there's any reason to, unless you think, for some reason someone wasn't given proper notice or anything like that. I think someone else may have joined the attendees. I don't know whether you want to check and see if they were here to comment on this application, but other than that, unless you're waiting for additional information that's going to possibly change the public's comments, I don't see any need to keep it open. But of course, closing the public hearing will trigger the 62-day time frame for you to make a decision on the subdivision.
Right. So I think part of the question is, should we leave it open until some of these items are addressed? Perhaps just one more month, and the Conservation Commission's comments can be addressed. Sean's comments can be addressed. We can get some response from the town in terms of maintenance. That can all be entered into the record, and then we could close the public hearing and move forward. I think it would just give us perhaps a little more breathing room.
You could do that, or you could ask the applicant to waive that 62-day time frame if you close the public hearing tonight.
Okay. Joel, would the applicant agree to that?
Are we now at the 62 days, or the next hearing will be over the 62 days?
No, the 62 days gets triggered from the close of the public hearing.
Okay.
So just in case there's some details that have to get resolved. When we close the public hearing, it triggers that time frame. If we don't close the public hearing, we're not triggering the time frame. So, our concern is just we could leave the public hearing open, or you could, allow us to extend the time frame within which we would have to make a decision.
I think let's close the public hearing next month, and together with that, we'll basically approve it. Anyway, listen.
I guess you'll keep the public hearing open to get these additional comments, to get additional information on these comments. Is that fair to say, Bonnie?
I think so.
I did have a couple of comments too. I could go over quickly.
Okay.
On Sean, if you have up there sheet number 2. So on lot number 3, it still shows the garbage enclosure in the setback. So it shows one of them's been moved back, but it just left, I think, an error, the one also in the front. For lot number 2, if you could give the distance from the side yard lot line between the side yard and the garbage enclosure, because it can't be less than 5 feet, just to confirm that. The soil erosion and sediment control notes on drawing number 4, you were missing some of the notes from section 4617B. You were missing specifically, it was sub 5 through sub 7. We talked about the trees. One of the things I noted, the tree protection detail, I think it states that it should be a requirement. I'm sorry, it states when possible. That should really be a requirement, not just when possible, that they'll have to be abiding by that tree protection note. And you're proposing to remove 8 trees and add 7, so plus the trees along Raywood Drive. So the tree law requires the trees to be replaced on a 1-to-1 basis or on a basis acceptable to the planning board. So just want to make sure the planning board's agreeable to what's proposed. It's removing 8 and replacing 7. The planning board's also going to need to discuss public improvements and whether they're required or waive them. And there's that list of them that's in the subdivision regulations. And you will also need to address recreation fees since it's new residential units. And I think we talked a little bit already about the tree bonding. Those notes will have to be added once that's all figured out what that's going to be.
Okay. Is that it, Ashley?
Yes, that's it.
Anybody else? No? Okay, so we're going to extend this public hearing to our regular meeting in August. And Joel, if you can follow up with the revisions, and we'll continue to move forward in the process. Ashley, do we have to renotice, or what do we have to do in terms of continuing the public hearing?
You don't need to renotice since you're announcing it at this meeting, and this meeting was noticed.
Okay. Do I need to pass a resolution to continue it, or we'll just continue it?
You could ask the board if you want to do a motion just to make sure everyone is agreeable to that, and
okay,
want to instead close it. It's just a motion to continue the public hearing to that August meeting date.
So I make a motion that the planning board extend this public hearing to the August, is it 18th, Noreen?
Yes, it is.
To the August 18th planning board meeting. May I have a second?
So moved.
Noreen?
Was that Pat?
That was Pat.
Thank you. Bonnie Franson,
Aye.
Pat Shea,
Aye.
John Allegro,
Aye.
Jeff Manson,
Aye.
Lisa McQuaid,
Aye.
Jason Sorinsky,
Aye.
and Anthony is absent.
All right. So with that, we will see you again on August 18th, Joel, and get the plans in, and we'll continue this at that time.
Hey, thank you.
Thank you, Joel.
Yeah.
Thank you, Rachel. Have a good evening. Okay, so the next item on our agenda is Joel Stossel, 502 Route 208. Who's here representing him? Joel, you're here?
Oh, yes, I'm here.
Okay, and then is there anybody else who needs to be brought in? Or essentially you're the one representative?
There should be other people here. Hold on one second. It should be the designer should be here. Do you see anyone?
There's a Saul.
Maybe you want to check with, I don't know the name exactly. Maybe check with this guy if he is it.
That's Dave Namako's office.
What?
Saul,
That's from Dave Namako's?
Namako's office. He's for
Kingswood?
Kingsville.
Okay.
Is it
Kingsville.
Don Tone?
I don't see
No,
it.
he's from Sam Schwartz.
Oh, okay.
I don't see anyone here, so I'll be by myself. I will try my best. The design is supposed to be here because I'm not the best on it, but I will try my best. So in regards to the material submitted, the last planning board meeting, we had comments on the site plan. We did a major change on the ramp, and we basically added linear foot to the ramp, so now it should comply with the ADA guidelines, 1 inch for every foot. And based on that, we have also updated the rendering, I believe so, to reflect that change. 1 second, please. Rendering here. Just 1 second. So we had also submitted a new rendering with addressing a lot of comments from the planning board and code compliance stuff. So, and at the same time, try to make the rendering should match actually what is on the site plan. So we had provided 3 type of red colors. This is one of the things we had submitted, and for the board to choose from. And maybe they don't like all of the 3, and that's the reason actually I'm supposed to have the designer here, because they can explain better than me the impact from the colors and understand the board's concern, but obviously they're not here. You can see in the first picture, we reduced the height of the sign significantly. So basically one of the zoning codes is that the height of the sign cannot be higher than any point of the height of the building. So we measured the highest point of the building. There is a dimensions on sheet there is dimensions on page 08, yes. So basically you can see that the height is 26.6, and the same thing is when you look on page 7, if you go back 1 page, just I want to show which one I match. So you can see the top of the white picture. It's not reflecting here correctly the red line, but the height of the white portion of the building is actually 26.6. So that's basically the highest point of the building, what was matched with the front sign. We did, going back to page, if we want to go back to page number 3. So basically we changed the front look. You can see the ramp, everything matches now. The ramp was extended all the way to the front entrance. We changed, you can see the door entering the building on top of the ramp. That's basically now turned, it was at the last picture, it was sideways, but we did it to the front due to the space that we don't have enough space for handicap landing on the sideways. Going to the next page, if you want to go to page 4, I know that I understand the board had a concern about the sign being on the top portion of the building. We looked over at according to this, and the concern was that it cannot be higher than the roof, but according to the zoning, this is in compliance. Now, if the board still has an issue with it, that was the reason I'm supposed to have the designer to discuss this and try to understand and address the board's concern. So certainly the board should raise the concern. I will try my best. The next, if we're going to page number 5, we changed the back of the building was the whole right side of the back was white. We changed it back to brown. We only let the middle portion white till the turn, as discussed at the last meeting. So it has the red. So the red can have a little bit reflection out of the white. On the other pages, we basically did some corrections. We noted that the board had a question about the siding, what type of siding. It's noted as vinyl siding. And I believe this is basically in general, yes, on the front picture, the phone numbers are now in confirm both sides. Like you can see there is, yes, this was one of the notes that it was different configurations. Now it's the same. The sidewalk was changed, and let me see if there's anything else. And basically, generally, this is all the comments that we addressed at this meeting.
Sean or Ashley, why don't we start with you? Do you have comments on what's been submitted?
Sure. So as far as the new architectural details, we do need, so the code allows for 2 square feet for each 1 foot width of building facade. And I believe Sean may have looked into whether or not this sign complies. I don't believe it complies with that. So we need those measurements, and the sign needs to comply with that 2 square foot for each 1 foot width of building facade. As far as the sign not exceeding the height of the building, it looks to me that it does. So I think, Joel, you had said it doesn't exceed the height. So I'm just a little confused by that because that ring seems to definitely exceed unless it's maybe not to scale or the perspective is off. It seems to me that it does exceed that. So that would need to be revised. One of the lighting specs for the parking lot fixtures, that exceeds the 25 to 3000 Kelvin that was previously recommended by Sean. And I think that's basically it. But again, it was really that issue with the sign being the size of the sign, the 2 square feet for each 1 foot width, and also the height of the sign.
Okay.
The height of the sign, I did this rendering. I don't know how proportionate it is, but the height, as mentioned in here, it's 26 feet and 6 inches, and this is the same measurement as the white at the highest point of the building as we actually measured physically on the site. It's probably might be that the rendering is like in perspective, not fully updated, but we will look into that and we'll get back to you on this.
Joe, I think there's still an issue on the sign since, based on the dimensions provided, it does exceed the maximum allowable on this, on this side of the building.
Just to clarify one thing, is the square footage of the sign being counted the whole array, the full everything what is in the round, or just the piece of material? Because we have like 4 empty areas, the 4 corners. Is that being?
I measured just the cross. I did not include the, this sections of the ring, and just the cross exceeded the square footage.
And the whole cross is being considered as a sign. Is that correct?
I would say that it is.
Okay.
Maybe Ashley or Bonnie have a different opinion.
I don't know. I was just thinking maybe this is basically a dorm or some type of decoration of the building, and the sign is just the words. I'm not arguing about it. I'm just asking a question.
Yeah, I would say, in my opinion, that the entire cross would be counted towards the sign.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I got this point. We will do a calculation and we'll look into that.
And then, so that also goes for the, if I can find it, this sign here.
Yes.
Yeah. So if you could provide dimensions for this sign.
Sure. So we will provide to, somehow I didn't look into this point. No, I got your count. So I will look into the square footage and we'll see. So basically we are counting the whole perimeter of the building. And based on that, we have 2 square feet for each linear feet of building.
No, so when I talked to Ben this afternoon, his interpretation of how the code reads is, for example, this section of the wall, that the measurement from this corner to this inside corner would be the linear foot of the, of that facade that would count for this sign.
Mm-hmm.
Similarly, for this sign, it would be from this outside corner to this outside corner.
Driveway down then. Mm-hmm. Okay, we'll look into that.
I just had 2 other minor notes on the site plan about very technical, very minor and technical, about labeling what the restoration will be around the ramp, whether that's, a landscaped island or grass or whatever, it just wasn't clear on the plan. And then just noting what the sub base for the sidewalk would be so that, it's constructible.
Okay, we will have AF update the site plan and provide that. So basically on the site plan, besides these 2 comments, the sub base for the sidewalk and the basically noting what is the left. Basically, you want to see a note on the plan, what is between the ramp and the curb, left areas.
Essentially, yes.
Okay, then based on that, the site plans should be good to go. So actually, here's the question again. I know this was raised a while ago, before I was in this application. If since now, at this point, the first time probably that you have a site plan that it's, right, we have the 2 comments, what is actually just 2 technical comments that can be a condition. The question is if there is an option for the board to give the approval for the ramp, and we'll deal with the signs later, because I see that the signs might be one or 1 or 2 meetings until the board will be satisfied. And the ramp is very important and they want to move on with that. They still need to, once the ramp is done, they still need to go for a building permit. So the question is if this is something that the board would like to consider, and voting only on the ramp and not on the finished materials.
Maybe Ashley wants to talk about that, or Bonnie.
Could you repeat that, Sean?
Oh, I just was wondering if you wanted to, consider that or discuss that.
Board members?
think we still have to discuss the sign.
Okay. Anybody else? Jeff?
Well, I guess I'm just wondering, is the ramp part of the site plan approval? Is the sign part of architectural review? And can those things be resolved separately, or do we need to look at it all holistically and just procedurally?
So they
I
really
think
should
it's fine
be
the part of the
addressed,
site plan and the ramp is part of
so they really should be addressed together because the architectural review is related to the site plan application itself. And I know that, this has been before you for some time. I think when it first came about and you were trying to really push forward with the ramp, it just took a while to actually get, the information you needed. And now you actually have that. And also the architectural details that you've been asking for, I think, again, they are really related and should be part of one. You don't want to start, if you do this for one application, it's just a slippery slope where then you're going to be getting other people to likely ask you to split applications and things like that.
Yeah,
Again,
I agree.
If you wanted to do that, then we'd figure out a way to make it work.
My sense is that we should do this approval. We should do it all together. The applicant has been operating. It hasn't really, he's operating under a temporary C of O. It hasn't affected his ability to continue operation. I particularly want to see the approval and the architecturals tied together. The approval of the ramp and the architecturals to ensure that both get done. And then just again, speaking for myself, the sign and the round appearance on the front, I really, from my perspective, I think that's part of the sign. It's bringing attention to what's being indicated there on that identification sign. I think it's all part and parcel of the sign. I think it exceeds the requirements, and I think it needs to be modified to something that perhaps gets rid of the upper part of the cross, the upper part of the round. Actually take away the round symbol, the round part of it. Take away the top part of that cross. And, if you wanted to have the bottom part of it be an accent, that might be okay. But, from my perspective, again, I think this is all part of the sign, and I also don't think it's particularly consistent with our aesthetics. Anybody else have anything to say?
Yes. Joel, I think your client can accomplish what he wants to accomplish with that round structure with the cross in it. If it was scaled down to be lower than that section of the building, it's just so not in character the way it is with the rest of Route 208. When you think about the other large office building is being completed over there that is a little more sedate looking, for lack of a better term, and this just doesn't really go with anything in the area. It doesn't go with the office condos that it's next to. And then the other thing I think your client should think about is the sign on the other side of the building is not in harmony with the big red sign in the front. They look, looks kind of hodgepodge. I mean, I understand that, maybe Williamsburg Pediatrics has had this logo for some time, but I think they should go back to the drawing board and try to come up with something that's a little more consistent between the two. And it'll look nicer if they do that.
I agree with you, John. Anybody else have comments, thoughts? So I think at this point, Joel, a little work needs to be done on the sign, the design, taking to heart John's comments about consistency. And my sense is that we should approve this all together. That's what I would recommend. Board members, would you agree that we should have one resolution approving everything?
Yes, I agree with you, Bonnie.
Thank you, Lisa. Jason, did you say something?
Yeah, I said I agree. I also think I recall saying that Williamsburg pediatric sign should go underneath that ledge, more up against the wall.
I think you did.
I thought that was something the board thought about.
Yeah, I think so that it's something that would be recessed.
Right.
As opposed to being on and really kind of going over the roof line. It may not be over the top of the roof line, the ridge, but it's still over the roof, a portion of it. And yeah, it doesn't, I don't think it quite goes well there. Anybody else who hasn't said something? I think we're going to hold this over to the next meeting. Joel, and if we could get some more, again, just focus on these signs and the design. So we could wrap this all up because we'd like to. That would be terrific.
Yes, I want to try to summarize basically. So all the other comments we did, like we changed the brown and some notes is basically fine. I see the focus is more of the two signs, the Williamsburg pediatrics and the front, the round with the cross. So this should have some more options, and we'll try. Hopefully the designer will come up at the next meeting because they will probably better be able to explain for the board. So hopefully between the workshop meeting and the regular meeting at the next month, we should be able to finish that up.
Okay. Well, let's see how it goes, and we'll see you at the next meeting.
Okay.
All right.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. So our next item on the agenda, I think we've completed discussion of this particular application. So the next item on the agenda would be Kingsville Synagogue, and I believe, Noreen, you said Saul is here for that application?
Yes, I saw his name.
Okay.
I didn't see David, though.
Okay.
Hello.
So I think,
yes, it's just me. David
okay.
had another meeting to make tonight.
Okay. Is Joel here for this application or not?
No,
No.
As far as I know, it's Joel's on he's not for this project.
Okay. All right. So we'll make Joel an attendee then.
Unfortunately, Joel, I apologize. I may have to boot you off the entire meeting. I don't know if there's a way to.
Fine, I'm leaving anyway. Have a good time. Yeah.
Okay, so Saul, do you want to explain sort of where we are in the process with Kingsville Synagogue? I know you've been off to the ZBA.
Yeah.
And brief the planning board on what's going on.
Yeah. So we had a few meetings with the zoning board to try and increase the parking to the required amount per the use that we're proposing for this project. And we currently have a public hearing open, but the zoning board recommended a sketch on the plan that is behind the front yard setback that would not require any variances or any interaction with the zoning board. So it was thought that it would be best to approach the planning board and see what their what your feelings were on the sketch, to see if you were amenable to that and if you would be willing to approve this kind of plan. But if not, then we've returned to the zoning board and asked for and continue with them.
So Sean, do you have those images?
So I'm working on pulling those up now.
Great, thank you.
So our original plan for the planning board, just to explain the image that's going to show up, meant that we had a parking area that exists in front of in the front yard of the lot, and
Right.
this new sketch would relocate it, just kind of shift everything back behind the 50-yard setback line. So
Right.
that's what we're doing. So that the sketch will we'll iron out some of the details that we'd like to go through with you, and then if you guys are amenable to it, then we'll return with a formal plan, a formal submission that you guys can see what the actual proposed idea is. Yeah, so the plan in the top left, that plan would be in green. That's the proposed outline that was recommended. Right now it has 10 spaces, so we would be suggesting 8 because only 8 is required.
Mhm.
And so we'd remove those last 2 spaces that are nearest to the property line, and then then there would be a drive that would curve from the existing driveway into a 20-foot drive space, and the dumpster enclosure would be on the side of that. So that's where we'd move everything. Yeah, on that side, where the cursor is, that would be where we propose the dumpster.
So I can't quite make up with this map, but a couple of reactions. One is, does our law say that you're not allowed in the required front yard or the front yard? Is number one. Number two is, are you sitting on the lot line there, on the side lot line? And is there any prohibition to placing the parking within the side yard?
All right, so from what I understand, from what the previous board meeting was with the zoning board, they interpreted the code, and it read like that to me, that it wasn't allowed in the required front yard. And so it is allowed in the side yard, because it doesn't say anything about the side or rear yards. Parking is allowed there, but not in the front yard, required front yard setback. So that was my understanding of the code. And then the answer to your last question is, yeah, it's a very good point about it being really close to the side lot line. So the way that the way that I have it in the sketch that I like most is you'd actually shift those parking spaces down to kind of hug that sidewalk near where it says electric box. So we bring it down away from the, you bring it parallel. Yeah, that's a better, yeah. So the yellow would be the drive and the parking spaces. Of course, we get rid of the parking spaces numbered 1 and 6 to make it 8.
Okay.
And then we just put the dumpster enclosure roughly where that 20 feet is, that 20 feet mark is in the driveway. And
Okay.
this way it's a lot farther away from the side lot line.
Yeah, and it looks like at least along that side lot line, looking at the parcel, it's wooded there. So I don't think you're hugging the parking, along a property line where you have a residence.
Mhm.
There is a residence beyond that, but there is space between this property and that adjoining lot, which is a very long, narrow lot, and the house is situated closer to the frontage of the road. So, and right now, that's a lot of that area is grassed anyway. In terms of retaining walls, is there anything that's needed to address topo in that area?
Yeah, you can actually see under the on the bottom, it says 5 foot high wall, and then a 2 foot high at that other corner, that opposite corner. But since
Okay.
we'd only be proposing 8 spaces, it wouldn't be 5 feet. It'd be a little less, maybe about 3 or 4. So
Okay.
that's because it'll bring it away from that side lot line, and we'll be able to grade a little more to help out with that. So yeah, we need a retaining wall, but it would be it'd be pretty small in nature, certainly less than 5 feet.
Sean, do you have any reaction to whether our code allows stacked parking?
Yeah, so that was a concern that I had researched today. I did not see any prohibition in the code
Okay.
that disallows the double stack parking. However, my initial reaction is that since this is a synagogue and would be used by the congregation that would arrive at the same time and leave at the same time, that having the doubles, the stacked parking, in my opinion, wouldn't raise a large concern because of being able to arrive and leave at the same time.
Yeah, if I could also add, Bonnie, that's especially because of the nature of this use, because it's a religious use, they're not even supposed to drive. Like it's religiously not allowed for them to use cars. So the spaces would be, it's just a town requirement that we are fulfilling here. So the movement of traffic would be simultaneous, so they'd all be able to leave and come as they go. They come together, but even then, they'd be discouraged from using their cars because it's just required during service to not do any work on the Sabbath. So
Bonnie,
Yes.
could Sean tell us again what the requirements are? Well, what it is with the stacked parking? I don't think it's right. If you have to have 10 spots, these are not 10 usable spots, and no one wants to get blocked in. I know if that's the parking that I was offered, I would probably park on the lawn or in the dirt area or something like that. I would not park in 1 through 5, knowing that 5 more people might show up and block me in. And it doesn't matter, we're all arriving or leaving at the same time. You're not going to want to get blocked in. So if you could mention that again, what
Yeah,
thing is for staff.
when I had looked in the code, I didn't see anything in the code that prohibited it. It was just my opinion that it could be possible in this, in this rare instance, since everyone is arriving and leaving at the same time, that this could work. That's ultimately up to the board whether or not they want to allow the stacked parking, but that was just my opinion.
Is there any way to reconfigure the parking? Do they need 10 spots?
we would use 8. So we'd be getting rid of 2, but there's no due to the tightness of the site in this area, it'd be very difficult to lay them out all in one row, just because it's not wide enough in that area. So we
Well,
thought,
so let's say where 10 is, what if you move 10 kind of to the, like the two on the edge, 10 and 6, leave 1 through 5 where they are, and move 10 and 6 farther down the driveway. This way people can still have room to get in. I mean, it's not 8 spots, it's only 6, but, and maybe find parking in two other spots in a different location. I don't like the stacked parking. I mean, that's just my opinion, but maybe we can request a reconfiguration to, you know, bring us something that might make more sense than this, because this doesn't make sense at all.
Yeah, I'm looking at, just real quick, I'm back into section 5738, which says, in any district, no private garage or other accessory building or parking area shall be within a required front yard. So it does reference required front yard as opposed to the front yard, which makes a difference as far as where you can put the parking.
Right, so that we, the zoning board, as well as us, interpreted that to mean that just the front yard setback.
So if you were to do the parking spaces, as Lisa's suggesting, you know, having 8 spaces that are in a row, and let's say that they are parallel to the lot line, but again, hugging the, let's say, closer to the driveway and the electrical box. Do the parking spaces start to encroach on the septic system?
If we moved it back, yeah, they definitely would. And that's what we were. That's what we really want to avoid, because that we wouldn't want to impact or leave parking spaces on a septic area. That's especially since that's areas in grass. We wouldn't be able to allow it to be drivable unless they had to, you know, reconfigure the whole system, which is very cost prohibitive.
Yeah, I'm trying to see if there's enough room that you don't, if it, you know, I can't, and maybe Sean, I don't know if you can even scale it off if you have plans there, you know, what the length is from the front yard. Okay, I see you have a 50-foot. So it's about 50 feet from the front yard going, yeah, that dimension doesn't help. I'm trying to determine what the front, what the area is and what the length of it would be between that front yard setback and then going back toward the septic field, but not going all the way back onto that. I don't know if that's a distribution box. Yeah.
Yeah,
and
that's the septic tank.
Yeah, the septic tank and then the tile field itself. So, you know.
It appears to be about another 50 feet. You're talking this dimension here?
Yeah, exactly. Going from that front yard setback back.
It's maybe just over 50 feet.
So, you know, that's only going to get us about 5 spaces, right? At most.
Yeah.
And then, so if we
rotated them 90 degrees.
Do you think they might fit if they're not rotated 90 degrees?
No, is that what you're suggesting, that they be rotated 90 degrees?
I'm suggesting that they're almost kind of, I wanted to find out if they could be parallel to, if the front end of the parking space, the stalls, could be almost parallel to that concrete walk and electrical box. So you'd be rotating them, but you just told me there's not sufficient length there to put 8.
You know, maybe they could be, you know, so that a car would be parked this way, this way, this way, this way, and similarly on this side.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if Saul's looked at that with a 24-foot aisle in the middle.
Yeah, 24-foot aisle with 5 or 4 spaces on each side. It's possible. I'd have to look to see how much space we would have there. It's just that our intention with the stacked parking was to try and prevent a lot of drive aisle space because it's a lot of extra pavement that they're frankly not going to use. So
A lot of impervious surface.
yeah, it's just a lot of, we wanted to avoid adding a elongated driveway of that length because that's an extra 24 feet wide by 50 feet long driveway that we'd have to add instead of just having that drive that was shown in the first picture. So that was our intention because the stacked parking it was trying to just eliminate some of the redundant drive aisles if we could help it, just because they're not going to really, in this specific case, as Sean said, it's not really going to be used in that kind of fashion where they're going to be taking up all 8 spaces every single Friday.
I mean, so if this were even, deemed acceptable to the majority of the planning board, we certainly don't want this to be precedent setting. And, the only reason we're even considering it would be because this is associated with a gathering place, where in theory people are coming and going, but, Lisa has expressed, her thoughts about that concept. Does anybody else have reactions to the stacked parking? Any planning board members? And again, just a reminder, this is the gathering place. This is for the synagogue aspect of this development. Plus there are residents there. And trying to find a solution, or the applicant's trying to find a solution where a variance is not triggered by creation of this parking area. They're trying to stay behind the 50 feet setback line. And I think some of these concepts were forwarded to us by the ZBA for the planning board's consideration. So that's kind of where we are now. Anybody else have thoughts on this?
Are we saying the ZBA sent the stacked parking?
The ZBA was just looking at, so the applicant has been in front of the ZBA.
Right.
And the ZBA, and in communication with the applicant, they've been looking, I guess, at alternatives to, requiring an area variance. And so these concepts evolved out of the discussions with the ZBA.
That's correct. It was it was almost this was their alternative recommendation to see if the planning board would accept something like this to not need a variance.
I don't know
Because
about
other
setting precedents. It does, for the ZBA to come back with the stacked parking, and then if we approve this, they might want to say, well, you approved that. And I mean, I don't know that we should, I get the ZBA, we're, we want to work with them, but I think if the, Saul wants to reconfigure it, maybe show us something that's not this. I mean,
So,
unless
right.
everyone else is okay with it. It doesn't look right to me.
Yeah, and just to clarify, so Saul, what is in front of the ZBA right now is what's kind of sitting beneath that yellow pad area, right? That's the 1, 2, is that 5 spaces that you're showing?
Correct. That's plan that you see is also stacked parking. So we had that in front of your board as well as the zoning board. It was just an expansion of the existing parking area. And I don't remember having either board really have doubts about this stacked parking given the nature of this application, because for people that come in and out, a retail space or anything like that, I would definitely agree. I'd take exception to having stacked parking, but this is like a really rare case, where everyone congregates. They're not supposed to use cars. So we originally had to expand the existing paver area, which is also stacked, but it was in the front yard. So that's why we're trying to move it.
Could we in any resolution that we would approve for this, highlight or specifically state why the stacked parking is preferred here over why we wouldn't prefer it elsewhere? and make this so that, like, this is the one time where stacked parking is okay for the planning board's purposes?
Yeah, that's a good point, Jason. So because it really is, I think, tied to the nature of this use where it's a gathering place. So people are gathering at, set time and then coming and going all together. And that's why it would be appropriate in this case versus a different type of application, retail or any other, really most other applications. I don't know that there'd be anything else that this would also similar be appropriate for, but that would be something we could definitely highlight in the resolution to make sure that there's no broad precedent setting by it.
Because I do think Lisa's right. If I am, the third person to show up to something during the week, I'm not parking in the parking lot. I'm parking down the street and I'll walk there. And that would not be beneficial, or it just wouldn't be good for the neighbors in the neighborhood. So that's.
And I think if I remember correctly, there was maybe at one point talk about reducing the amount of parking spaces, but the board did want to keep this requirement to ensure that there wouldn't be that on-street parking, to be sure that there was enough spaces on site.
Since the street is in the village of South Blooming and not in the town of Monroe.
Right.
I can't think of any precedent here in the town of Monroe, but I'm thinking of St. Mary's Church over in Washingtonville, where they have kind of a similar situation over there. It does work out well. It's kind of the same thing. They have church, they have the service, people come and people go, and it's not a big problem. So that's my 2 cents.
Thank you, Pat. I mean, I know that now that you say that, my parish down in New Jersey, they had paid parking, they had striped parking, but again, when special occasions occurred and there was overflow, they would actually have attendance parking, stacked parking, to fill up the lot as much as possible. So it isn't something that's it can be common for places of worship.
I've seen it before as well.
Yeah. Who was that who mentioned that?
Saul, that was me. I've
Saul.
seen it. I've seen it as well, and especially in Jewish communities, it's because there's a lot of people who don't really. They're not. It's kind of like a cultural thing where they're not really encouraged to drive unless you're far enough away. Which in this case, it's the whole purpose of this use is for it to be a really local, family, close, relations, synagogue. So religious use.
I'm just still trying to see if you couldn't somehow fit 8 spaces that go with the contours of the property. I actually have my scale here, so I'm just measuring and playing around. Any of the other board members have some, again, thoughts with regard to this?
I'm not adverse to the stacked parking. Again, it is situational. Based on the applicant's own comments during the hearings that we had, it's rare that people drive because primarily we are talking about services on the Sabbath when there won't be any cars. On occasion, but rarely, he mentioned that there would be gatherings there at the synagogue outside of the Sabbath where people might choose to drive. I think that Jason's suggestion of getting a idea of where the congregants live in relation to the synagogue, when we receive that map, some of them are really quite close. If I remember right, they're on Kingsville, just down the hill. Some are a little further away. So I think even in those situations, you're going to have people who it's just, frankly, as convenient to walk there as to drive the hill. Listen, just in my own life, there are times, particularly in the winter, when we're stacked 4 cars deep in my driveway, and we jockey the cars. And we're probably doing a lot more of that through the winter season than they'll be doing at Kingsville Synagogue. I think it might not be a bad idea if you could preserve spot 1 and 6 and just push the dumpster a little bit more past the edge of where the yellow is, where the existing, I guess that's retaining wall, close to where space number 5 would be on the old layout, the original layout that we were proposed. I think it's important that whenever possible, if we can avoid needing a variance, that's a good thing. And this is a particularly creative solution in this situation.
So the board would be a lot more receptive to this kind of design layout if it was 10 spaces as opposed to the required 8. Am I hearing that correctly?
Oh, I don't know. I don't know that I heard that.
I'm just
I guess my thought is by keeping space 6 and 1, you might wind up with less stacking than by having it merely with 8. You're just going to have more need to stack more that way.
So
if only 5 cars, then you're not stacked.
I'm going to share my screen for a moment. If you can, I'd have to, thank you. Thanks, Sean. Okay. So can you see this drawing?
Yep.
So I'm just looking at this dimension from here to here. So this dimension from here to here, again, I'm roughing this out. This is about 50 feet. So that would be your setback, right?
Mm-hmm.
And from this point to this point is about 80 feet. And I just scaled off roughly, this is about 19, almost 20 feet. So my question is, if you took an area that's 80 and then go 20 back like this, are you encroaching into this side yard? In other words, to try and make it so that it's not stacked, but it's actually, they're all, perpendicular parking spaces. Is there a way to have that done?
I have a couple concerns with it because, but besides my worry of further impacting the concrete walkway area and getting close to the lot line and impacting the septic tank, because these spaces are going to be 9 feet deep. You'd also need a 24-foot drive aisle to allow access in and out, and then it would also end in a dead end that would be very close to the building. In addition to you having to move the electric box and all of the concrete walkway, and then you'd have to also position an exit way out of the parking because it's kind of at a cross with the entrance to the road. So I have concerns about being able to do it that way.
Yeah, it seems to me it's between the septic system. We have to draw a line here, but it's almost like if you want to do them all perpendicular, you're really limited into like a boxed area here. If that's even possible, because once if we come down the 20 feet.
Also keep in mind being able to construct and maintain a retaining wall that would have to be proposed near that lot line.
Yeah, because as we get closer to that lot line, that retaining wall is actually going to get a lot bigger because of our inability to grade, and also it's steep in that area where you have the 80-foot mark. So that's what we were trying to avoid, just to keep as far away from the lot line as possible.
Yeah, because this is about here again. That would have to be about your box that I think you could make that setback. You'd have to hug this property line. I'm not seeing the steepness on this map as much as I'm seeing it here. So I don't know what the slope is. This is a 1:30 scale, so
And those are 2-footers, Bonnie.
those are 2-footers.
Yeah. So that last contour is a 804. Yeah, that's an 804 contour. So that's a grade of 6 feet that you're changing by the time you get to actually 8 feet by the time you get to the circle of the concrete walk. So 8 feet it's pretty steep for a walkway. And I've been on that site, and that you notice that it kind of it rolls downhill as you get to the end.
So if this is 4 feet, right? Because you said 2-foot contours. So for every contour, it's 2 feet.
Correct.
And we have about a distance of 26. That's about 15% in here.
That's pretty steep.
So as you start to get over here, because the contour lines are closer together, the grade increases as you're going, at least in this direction. Here it's flattening out, but it's right in here.
We really try to keep the parking spaces at most 5%. You know, if you're really steep, you make it more, but a good like stable marker is 5%. So that area we dismissed initially way back when we started this because of that steepness at the end of the coming down out of the house.
Board members, any other thoughts?
I think to keep things linear, doing it along the property line, you're adding a lot of pavement.
Mm-hmm. Because then you have to have the space to back out.
Yeah.
And the drive to get to the entrance.
The aisle.
It looks like maybe you should reduce the number of parking spots. I mean, we need certain amount of parking spots based on the number of congregants that are going to be there. Is that where we come up with 10?
Correct. 8 is required.
8?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
Anybody else? Any reactions? So, should we kind of just informally poll the board, Ashley?
Yeah, I think so. The zoning board is asking for some feedback. So I think it makes sense maybe to pull the board and see what direction you want to get back to them on.
So options include allowing the stacked parking, reducing the number of parking spaces, trying to still find some other solution, but that is an option. It would introduce more impervious surface area and grading. What other options have we discussed?
Well, the other option is to say we don't like any of those options and we want the ZBA to really consider a variance.
Right. I did say variance. So variance to allow what they had in front of them or some other options.
You're still faced with the stacked parking, as proposed before the ZBA currently. So.
Bonnie, I do have a question that I wanted to get to, and this kind of ties into what you're currently talking about, is the existing paved area. That's 24 feet wide, so it's, theoretically you could make it into 3 spaces, but I don't know what the planning board thinks about keeping it or removing it, or, you know, because our intention was, or our request was to leave it alone, to let it remain, because it's a fairly new paver area. And so I don't know if the planning board would count that towards the spaces. Maybe we'd be able to reduce that, you know, the new parking, that would count as 3, and then, you know, we'd only need 5 to fit somewhere else. I don't know what your thoughts were on that.
So you're saying that 3 fit right now within what you're showing as existing paver parking area?
Yeah, it's 24 feet, but we'd extend it by 3 feet just to make each space 9. So,
okay.
Yeah, but that would constitute 3 existing spaces.
I'm gonna send this back to Sean so he can share his version of the map. Hold on a second.
I guess the sketch with the yellow highlighted area would be easy, because that has both. Yeah, so that where it says existing paver parking area, that space right there could serve as 3 spaces, and if we be able to put 5 with a driveway, then technically we'd have 8 and wouldn't require a second stack. So, but I don't know how the planning board would be okay with that, because we'd still have to expand that existing area by just a really small amount. Just
You don't
extend that curve.
You'd also have parking in the front yard setback.
Correct. So that, you know, that does run us back into our original problem. So, you know, one of the points on this was for me to ask what the board, what your thoughts were on the status of what that parking area was. Are you gonna, do you want us, are you gonna require us to leave it? Or, would you be okay with keeping it? Anything like that?
How would you get to the other 5 spots? Because it looks like in the red, it looks like that's like a thoroughfare to go right through where the 3 spots should be.
Yeah, I understand that. I think they would just turn right. They would come in this way and they turn right.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Straight into those 3 spaces. We would just make sure that the aisle is kind of perpendicular, and then once those 3 spaces end past here, then it would turn into the new paved area.
So with what you're talking about, what if you just in theory did away with that first row, the 1 through 5, you wouldn't have to have it as large as you have it right now?
Correct. We'd get rid of that second stacked row, but it would run us into the problem of, you know, keeping that existing front yard parking area, which, you know, is why we're in this predicament.
I don't know. It sounds like you came up with a better solution than the stacked, in my opinion.
It would also more than likely reduce the height of the retaining wall required to support, you know,
very much so.
Spots 6 to 10.
Yeah, that's very much so, because we'd be that much farther away from the lot line. That's true.
It would certainly be awkward, but would maybe be better, you know, it would eliminate the stacked parking for sure. And require a variance for that parking in the front.
And to go back to that original design, Sean?
I'm sorry?
To go back to that original design?
No, I think we're discussing the hybrid of the 2, leaving spots 10 through 6, and then proposing 3 spots here.
10 through 6 going back, and then 3 spots.
Right here.
That's I can't envision what this would look like. If you have 3 people parking there, you're saying then you have the red driveway that's.
Well, I envision it, if you can follow my cursor for a minute, envision it like this.
Yep.
Out to here.
Uh-huh.
This would be your dumpster location.
Okay.
And then pavement edge would be here to here. and then kind of tie this back.
Back down, okay.
Right. So, yeah, so we keep the existing parking area in the front and only have that one row, spaces 6 through 10, essentially.
Gotcha.
Or maybe 10 through 7, because that's, or, yeah, no, we do 6 through 10. That's 5 and 3. Yep.
What do people think about that? Is that what you want to, because the newer spaces will be behind the front yard, the existing parking area will remain where it is. At present, they'll still need a variance.
Looks feasible to me.
I think it's
Anybody
a better
else?
solution. I think it's a better solution than having the 10
Than
spots.
having the
like that.
stacked?
Especially if they only need 8 anyway, and from what you're saying, they're not gonna use them all.
Bonnie, let me ask you this. Will we still require a variance in that way?
I'm not sure, because I guess the question would be, are those spaces considered pre-existing, non-conforming? Is that a pre-existing non-conforming area?
I would argue
And I
that
think if you needed to expand it at all, I thought Sully might have said that you had to expand it in at least some.
By 3 feet.
So
correct.
even if it was pre-existing non-conforming, then it would be an expansion of that pre-existing non-conforming, so it would require variance. I mean, it would, I guess, be considered less of a variance.
Yeah, it'd be a very extremely small, because then you'd only need that 3-foot sliver. So that 3-foot expansion would still require the variance. Okay.
Right. I guess the question is, so I would, I think it's reasonable to explore this alternative because you're working with the existing paved area and then accommodating additional spaces in a manner that's not stacked, which, there's some concern about from some board members. I don't have an issue with kind of pursuing this alternative. Does anybody feel strongly against this alternative? No, I see John shaking his head. I can't see everybody. Pat already said he was okay. Jeff, you okay with that? You're muted, Jeff. If you're...
Yeah, I'm off mute. It wouldn't be my first choice, the hybrid alternative, but I don't feel so strongly about it, particularly in light that it seems like the majority of the board would either prefer that or at least like to consider that option.
Okay.
Okay.
Anybody else? Jason, did you comment?
I don't really have a preference on which way the applicant would prefer. I like I said, my personal preference is to avoid the stacked parking, but.
Okay. All right. So Saul, do you think you have some direction to go back to the ZBA with?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'll let the client know, and we'll go from there, because it looks like with the hybrid we'd still require that variance, but it'd be really small. So if we decide to go through with that, I think it'd be best for everyone, because this way we'd be able to avoid a lot of impact on the site, because that's really what I'm trying to keep to a minimum, adding all this new driveway and digging up all the existing sidewalk and stuff like that, because it's gets to be pretty expensive. So yeah, I have a lot of direction. I did want to ask you one last question, because in the sketch where the drive and the stack parking, if we do the hybrid, it would be only one row. Does that have to be, would the board be okay with that being a gravel or even a decorative stone, like a colored stone surface, and not have it be the existing, match the existing pavers?
I don't know, Ashley, do you recall offhand if we needed a hard surface For some reason, I thought we did, but
So I know
maybe not.
the parking lots have to be, I think it's suitably paved is the
The term.
requirement.
Okay.
So I think it kind of depends on what exactly is, proposed and whether that's.
Yeah, I think if he was to do more pavers and that's a hard surface, that might be more acceptable and fit within the lines of paving than
Right.
gravel.
Mhm.
But I think that's something we can look into a little more. And I would definitely suggest that as you're drawing up this alternative, to please include Sean.
Okay.
So that he can look at it, because, I don't want you to go too far along if it turns out that there's an issue with, turning radii to get out of the spaces,
Sure.
aisle widths, et cetera. So I just think it'd be good if you keep in contact with Sean.
Absolutely.
Anything else, anyone? Ashley, Sean, board members?
I guess funny, I just didn't know whether the ZBA or the ZBA chair wants anything from you, just to kind of summarize what direction the board decided in, or if Saul's just going to relay that to them.
I think we should prepare something. Perhaps Noreen, you could draft something up, and then Ashley will look at it.
Okay, that's fine. Yes, and speaking with Mike today, he did want something to go back to his board with, because they have their meeting next week, and currently Kingsville is in a standing open public hearing that he'll extend for 1 more month if you agree to look at further information with this. So he does need a little feedback from us before he can go further on Tuesday.
Okay. All right. So we will write something up then. We will send it to the board. They can continue their review. It may change the kind of the parameters of the variance that they're contemplating. And the applicant will send designs to Sean, just so that, again, we're working together. And if something starts to, become more concrete, we can start with the board, so they can have some initial reaction before our next meeting.
Okay. Sounds great.
Sounds good, Saul?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Thanks.
Talk soon.
All right, so let me get back to my agenda. Kingsville. So the item is not on the agenda, but I'd like to cover it before we get into planning board minutes. At our last meeting, we discussed the need to retain consultants for Monroe Commons. And essentially, I believe we have included, and picked the majority of the consultants that will assist us in overseeing the preparation of a draft environmental impact statement. In particular, AKRF and Nina Peak will be kind of heading up the process and overseeing the other consultants that will be part of our team that represents the town. In our discussions, we've been talking about traffic engineers. I had recommended, and I had talked to Mazer Consulting. I've worked with them for a long time. Mazer Consulting actually had purchased John Collins engineers, who have been in the traffic business for a very long time. And Dr. Phil Greeley is part of that organization. And we did have a member, Jason, who suggested, and for whatever reason, he is not satisfied with Mazer Consulting, that we consider other consultants. I think another alternative that I had thrown out there was that to minimize the number of consultants who would be involved, that we consider AKRF. We did provide some feedback from from Nina Peak with regard to their ability to do traffic. They certainly do it in the region. They are doing some studies here. And they both know our area, and they both work with Region 8. They both organizations have done work in Orange County. So my proposal this evening is that we vote on either of those firms. Jason had suggested a couple of other firms, and that I think we can entertain them if the board believes that the two that have been presented, either AKRF or Mazer, we don't have a majority, we don't get a sense that those are the consultants that would be appropriate for this review. So my recommendation is that I'll take votes on both of those organizations, traffic consultants, and then go from there. Because I think if we then open it up to more, if we want to listen to any other consultants, then I think we have to probably hold a special meeting. So with that, anybody, let's first talk about Mazer and or AKRF. Does anybody, and my consultants, our consultants, Sean and Ashley, to the extent you work with them and you want to offer some thoughts on those organizations, you're welcome to. Does anybody have any thoughts on either Mazer or AKRF?
Bonnie, I've heard of both firms. I know that AKRF did the Southeast Orange County traffic study about 15 years ago. I don't have any objection to either one of them, and I would defer to the other members' expertise and Ashley and Sean's expertise on this.
Thank you.
Of the two that have been proffered, I would prefer AKRF. Speaking just as a village resident, I know it takes 8 years for me to get from my house to the Woodbury Commons. Throw in a 1,600 unit housing complex, another 160 some odd units in Bald Hill, a business center. I think we need something bigger than a traffic circle that Mazer offered as their solution to the Freeland or 105 and Larkin intersection.
I don't think that was Mazer's, I'm sorry, Jason, I don't think that was Mazer's solution to dealing with the new development that's proposed. And at this point, I don't know that we all know all of the mitigations that are anticipated, but that would be a conversation we have to have with DOT. As I had indicated to you, there's sometimes, just like, for instance, the Chester interchange on 17, when some of those larger projects were going in the industrial park, there were money set aside to actually fix that ramp, but they had to get their fair share contributions from the various developers. So, I think you're focused on this one particular improvement that Mazer had suggested, but I think there's a bigger picture that's being missed here, of which we don't necessarily have the details. And I personally don't think it's fair to be, portraying Mazer in that fashion. But I appreciate that you're saying AKRF. So your preference is AKRF.
Of those two?
Of those two. Thank you. Anyone else? And I will say, again, between Mazer, from my perspective, they're long-term. They've been in the business, again, as long as I've been in the business. AKRF is equally suitable, and there's an efficiency there with AKRF doing it because they're overseeing the DEIS. So any other thoughts?
Yeah, I just like to add that it certainly makes sense to include AKRF, since they will be, the planning consultant. And I'd just like to add that we, our office has worked with Mazer and Phil Grilly on a number of large projects in other municipalities, but have worked with them often, and have always found them to be professional and solid in the recommendations. So.
Thanks, Sean. Pat, any thoughts? I know you're the newbie here.
Well, I've been on the board long enough to find out where the bathroom is. And now we're going to move back to the town. Oh, I have to find it all over again.
That's right.
I hate to say it, but I'm clueless when it comes to this traffic study. And so I really don't, I'm ambivalent about it. I'm still learning. So.
Okay. Jeff, thoughts?
I think honestly, with those, we have two good options. I did some looking into AKRF when we took them under consideration to spearhead the seeker on this. I think their experience locally, in upstate New York is good. I think they have both depth and diversity in what they've done. So I kind of like that. Mazer, I had a little bit of experience in observing some of their work on a project outside our community, in some public meetings as they presented their solution. I think they took the feedback of the community into consideration. I think they presented a good solution. They reworked it to satisfy the community. There was an issue then where the state said, well, one of those elements you can't do, and they found a solution to that as well, which is what's being constructed currently, and I kind of get to observe on my way to work. So again, I think I'd be happy with either.
Okay. Lisa? You're muted. You're muted.
Sorry about that.
That's
I would
okay.
say if someone doesn't want to go with Mazer for whatever the reason, I don't mind AKRF. I haven't looked into either one, so I don't really
Okay.
have a preference.
Okay. When I did reach out to Anthony, his reaction, because I actually want to find out if he had worked with anyone since he is, in that business, and he, from his perspective, said he was split. So I don't think he recognized the benefits of considering another consultant, and also recognized also the benefits of retaining consultants, the ones that have been described and had been discussed previously. So, I think what I'm going to do is, what I'd like you to do is, if you either don't feel strongly, or if you like the firm, raise your hand for that consultant. I want to see if we have like 5 for Mazer, 4 for AKRF, or 4 for Mazer, 5 for AKRF. Again, if you don't, one way or the other, if you think they're both good, just raise your hand. If you feel more strongly about one, please raise your hand, and don't raise your hand for the other. So, Jason, I can't see you.
Yeah, my video has been slowing everything else down, so I've been on the audio, but I think my opinion's known. I prefer AKRF.
Okay. All right. So for the rest of us, raise your hand if you're okay with Mazer. And so 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. And Lisa, you're not raising your hand? You're muted.
Sorry, I'm not raising my hand right now.
Oh, okay. And then who's okay with AKRF?
That would be me.
And me.
Okay. So it looks like we're all okay with AKRF. So we will go with AKRF. Okay. And I think either would be fine. So this has a benefit of some efficiency, since they are going to be working on the DEIS and overseeing it. Ashley.
Bonnie, if you want to just do a formal motion.
Yeah. So I will make a motion that the planning board retain AKRF to represent us as the traffic consultant for the Monroe Commons project. May I have a second?
I will second that.
Noreen?
Sorry, I had to unmute. Bonnie Francis,
Aye.
Jason Storinsky,
Aye.
John Allegro,
Aye.
Jeff Manson,
Aye.
Lisa McQuaid,
Aye.
Pat Shea,
Aye.
and Anthony is absent.
Okay, thank you. I do want to acknowledge any town officials that we may have here. And I see our supervisor is present. Supervisor Cardone, I don't know if you wanted to say hello.
No, just thank you all for your work and your efforts. It's appreciated very much. I know these meetings tend to get a little long, but keep up the great work.
Thank you, Supervisor.
Oh, you're welcome. Anytime.
Thanks for listening in. So with that, I think we are down to minutes. And Sean cannot leave because he's running the meeting. And Ashley can if she wants to. But you're welcome to stay on, Ashley, if you like. So what do we have on the agenda? What are our first set of minutes?
January
21st. All right, so who's on the January 21st minutes?
Okay, so present that night was Anthony, Lisa, you, and John. Jason and Jeff were absent.
Anthony, Lisa, myself, and John. So we have 4.
Yeah, but Anthony's not here.
Oh, sorry, Anthony. So we can't do January. I'm
Nope.
sorry. February 13th.
Okay, hold on. I got to flip my page. Anthony, Lisa, Jason, Jeff. We can't do that either.
Okay. Next is
March 12th. Oh, hold on. I stapled everything together here.
Yeah, I'm trying to get to my agenda minutes.
Anthony, Bonnie, Jason, Jeff, and John. So
So I think
Bonnie, Jason, Jeff, and John, that would give us 4.
Yeah.
okay. So let's open up those minutes. Again,
I
this
vote
is
no.
Hey! Not nice.
I like having that power.
Oh man. All right. I gotta find my Monroe folder. Disappeared. Hold on. Agenda minutes because I will share them. Again, we are on 3/12. As you can see, I got up at 5 o'clock in the morning, which I'm not accustomed to. Boo. All right. Share screen. All right. These are our March 12th minutes. And this especially had to, we went over the Smith Farm 2020 pool that they were proposing up at the top for those of you who were present. And I'm just trying to see. So in this, in the minutes, my only comment was that for the DG resolution, for the maximum number of lots, I think we said up to a maximum of 15 lots, not that it's 15 lots. So I just wanted to make that change.
I'm sorry, DG, so I have...
You're on page 2 of 3, and it's
Down at the
discussion
bottom.
3.3 DG management.
Right, okay.
And yeah, and the be it resolved that it's a town board hereby approves the conventional plan with up to 15 lots for a
Okay.
determination for yield. Because that's the maximum. As you go through the cluster, they could lose more lots.
Right.
So it's not guaranteed 15.
Okay, I'll fix that.
Did anybody have any other comments? Any other items?
No items.
No.
Okay. So with that, then I am going to make a motion that we approve the 3/12/2020 minutes of the Town of Monroe Planning Board Workshop. May I have a second?
I'll second that.
All right. All in favor? Aye.
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 Any not in favor? And then any abstentions?
I'll abstain. I wasn't there.
Okay.
Thank
I'll
you.
abstain as well because I wasn't there.
Okay. All right. So next is
You don't have that one. I realized I never sent it.
the March 30th.
Yeah, I never forwarded them out.
Okay. So that's a wrap.
Yeah.
So with that, I'll make a motion that we adjourn this meeting unless anybody feels strongly about anything we need to discuss. May I have a second?
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. So Sean gets to go home. Or get off at least. He is at home. Thank you, Sean.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody, for joining us, and we will see you at our next meeting.
Yes.
Stay healthy. Stay healthy, people. Bye.
Good.
Right.